Hey everyone, today we're working on our next informational text in our unit, and it is about garbage of all things. Now, one of the things that we're going to do today, I mentioned in yesterday's lesson, and that is we're going to read through the article first, and then we're going to annotate it. We're going to mark it up. So let's just start reading this together. Garbage cans are not magical portals. Trash does not disappear when you toss it in a can. Yet the average American throws away an estimated 1,600 pounds of waste each year. If there is no magic garbage fairies, where does all the trash go? There are 4 methods to managing waste: recycling, landfilling, composting, and incinerating. Each method has its strengths and weaknesses. Let's take a quick look at each. Recycling is the process of turning waste into new materials. For example, used paper can be turned into paperboard, which can be used to make book covers. Recycling can reduce pollution, save materials, and lower energy use. Yet some argue that recycling wastes energy. They believe that collecting, processing, and converting waste uses more energy than it saves. Still, most people agree that recycling is better for the planet than landfilling. Landfilling is the oldest method of managing waste. In its simplest form, landfilling is when people bury garbage in a hole. Over time, the practice of landfilling has advanced. Garbage is compacted before it is thrown into the hole. In this way, more garbage can fit in each landfill. Large liners are placed in the bottom of the landfills so that toxic garbage juice doesn't get into the groundwater. Sadly, these liners don't always work. Landfills may pollute the local water supply. Not to mention that all of that garbage stinks. Nobody wants to live next to a landfill. This makes it hard to find new locations for landfills. As landfill space increases, interest in composting grows. Composting is when people pile up organic matter, such as food waste, and allow it to decompose. The product of this decomposition is compost. Compost can be added to the soil to make the soil richer and better for growing crops. While composting is easy to do on site somewhere, like home or school, it's hard to do after the garbage gets all mixed up. This is because plastic and other inorganic materials must be removed from the compost pile or they will pollute the soil. There's a lot of plastic in garbage, which makes it hard to compost on a larger scale. One thing that is easier to do is burning garbage. There are 2 main ways to incinerate waste. The first is to create or harvest a fuel from the waste, such as a methane gas, and burn the fuel. The second is to burn the waste directly. The heat from the incineration process can boil water, which can power steam generators. Unfortunately, burning garbage pollutes the air. Also, some critics worry that incinerators destroy valuable resources that could be recycled. Usually, the community in which you live manages waste. Once you put your garbage in that can, what happens to it is beyond your control. But you can make choices while it's still in your possession. You can choose to recycle, you can choose to compost, or you can choose to let someone else deal with it. The choice is yours. Okay, so I want to talk about the things that stick out to me as a reader as I am reading this article. So we've read it through one time, and now we're going to go back through it and look at a couple of things. Okay? The first is like general facts that I think might be important. So the 1,600 pounds of waste each year, I think that's probably a number I'm going to want to remember. Okay? Another thing I love that this author did was right here, they say there are 4 methods. And then they say each method has its strengths and weaknesses. So just by reading those words, I now know that we're going to compare and contrast all the different methods for getting rid of garbage. Okay? Now, one thing to note is, see how we start with recycling, and then we go to landfilling, and then we go to composting, and then finally incinerating. Those paragraphs need to be in that order. So if you look, here we go. Burning. Okay, so the paragraphs need to follow that thesis statement. Okay, All right, so recycling is a process of turning waste into new materials. I love the fact that we've got examples of what that means, not just we stopped with new materials going, people can draw their own conclusions. It's very important to support your statement with evidence, and that's what I like about this, about the book covers. Then it talks about what recycling can do. And then it talks about the things that might not be so great about recycling. They say that recycling might use more energy than it saves. Okay. Next is landfilling. And look again at what this author did. This is a great transition sentence. Still, most people agree that recycling is better for the planet than landfilling. Then boom, the next paragraph starts with landfilling is the oldest method of managing waste. That transition sentence is there to just take your hand as a reader and lead you to this next paragraph. Okay, that's a great transition sentence, mentioning landfilling here and starting with landfilling in the next paragraph. So there's a description, and I would probably highlight that just to, if I wasn't real comfortable with the definition of landfilling, I can always come back to that. And then what happens with it, it's compacted before it's thrown in a hole. Liners are used, but then the problems is that sometimes the landfills don't always work and they can pollute the water supply. Okay. Look at this next transition sentence. This makes it hard to find new locations for landfills. Here's the transition sentence. It's a different way to do it. Now you have it at the beginning of the next paragraph. As landfill space increases. So at this point, this is referring to this paragraph. I love that. As landfill space increases, interest in composting grows. Composting is where people pile up organic matter so that it can decompose. So there's our definition. Highlight that. Let's see here. It can be added to the soil to make it richer. And then what are the issues with it? It's hard to do after the garbage gets mixed up. It's hard to do on a larger scale. Okay. Now, moving on to the last thing, where it talks, and here again, let's look at the way that this author used transitions. There's a lot of plastic and garbage, which makes it hard to compost on a large scale. And then we talk about how hard it is right here. And then one thing that is easier to do than what's hard up here is burning garbage. There are two main ways to incinerate, there's that word, waste. So here are our ways. And then, whoops, the thing that is not so great about it is that it can pollute the air. All right, then we have a nice concluding paragraph here. Usually the community in which you live manages your waste, but you can make your own decisions. Okay, very nice there at the end. Okay, so I have read this through once, then I read it through again and highlighted things that I thought was important, things I thought were important. Okie dokie, here we have some multiple choice questions. And as you can see, there are 10 multiple choice questions and there are 3 short answer questions that go along with this lesson. You and I are going to do the evens together right here, and you are going to turn in the odds. Okay, so it's in your best interest to go ahead and download this assignment so that you have it. And let's go ahead and talk about the answers to the evens. Remember, you are doing the odds by yourselves. Okay, and the best way to answer that would be to highlight it like you're going to see me do. And I'm going to use a different color than the highlight on the actual question. Okay, so if we're doing the evens together, let's look at number 2. Which best describes the meaning of incineration used in the text? So if I went back here to incinerate, I can see that incinerate or incineration means to burn. So I need to find that answer. To burn waste materials. Yep. Okay. So I will highlight that. And let's look at number 4. which conclusion could best be supported with text from the passage? Okay, so that means where can I go back to the story and find the most evidence for which one of these letters here? Let's see, each method of waste management has its drawbacks. Well, I can probably find information on every one of those, can't I? Let's move on. Recycling is without a doubt the best way to handle waste. I don't think that's right because there were 4 ways given and there were positive and negative things said about each one. Incineration is the best way to process waste. Again, those words like the best, those are never things that you want to jump on first when you're looking at multiple choice, because sometimes by just including that phrase, the best, you get tricked because, again, in this article, we talked about 4 different things and none of them were said to be the best, so it can't be C. All large cities should create massive compost piles. That was not said either. That was nowhere. Remember, they said that composting on a large scale was difficult. All right, so we can look back through here and remember letter A, it said each one has its drawbacks. And we know that because we highlighted the different things that happen. Okay, like this with recycling, it might use more energy than it saves. With landfilling, it may pollute the local water supply. With composting, it's hard to do on a large scale. And then with incineration, sometimes burning garbage pollutes the air. Okay, so perfect. Now let's look at number 6, which best expresses the meaning of the word compacted as it is used in the 3rd paragraph. So let's go find that word. 1, 2, 3. Whoop, I have it highlighted. Okay, it's compacted before it's thrown in a hole. So if we were using our context clues and we didn't know what the word compacting meant, we could keep reading. Garbage is compacted before it's thrown into a hole, and this way more garbage can fit in each landfill. So if I was using my context clues and I saw that that second sentence talked about how once it's compacted, more things can be put into the hole, that to me would mean crush or smash. Okay, so let's look at our answers and see which one is right. Let's see, it's burned before it's thrown in the hole. That's not what compacted means. Garbage is put into trucks before it's thrown in the hole. That's not what compacted means. Garbage is crushed smaller before it's thrown in a hole. Absolutely, that's the one. All right, finally, let's look at number 8. I guess we have 2 more. Okay, which is not included in the text. Now remember, if we're looking at our text features, not is bolded. Okay, so to remind us that we're looking for which one of these is not included. So let's check it out. A description of how trash is collected. I don't remember that being put anywhere in here, but let's read the rest of our choices and make sure. A description of the uses of compost. That was in there. A description of the 2 methods of incinerating trash. Yes. A description of how landfills have advanced over time. Yes. So our correct answer is A, because I don't remember it talking about how your trash is collected from your corner at all. Last question, number 10. Which title best expresses the main idea of the text? The main idea of the text. The magic of recycling, bringing back what was once lost. Well, it can't be that one because as we look at the article, it talks about 4 different ways to manage waste, not just recycling. Methods of waste management, pros and cons. Ooh, I like that one because it did talk about the positives and negatives, but let's look at our other 2 options just to be sure. Recycling, landfilling, or composting, which is best for you? Okay, that one left off 1. It left off incinerating, so we know it can't be that one. Do your part, how to save the earth by recycling and composting. Okay, that's a good one, but it left off landfilling and incinerating. So we know that the answer has to be B. All right, so you are responsible for going back through and doing the odds. And in our next video, we are going to do number 2 of the short answer to talk about the correct way to do that.